Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Gina, and on behalf of the A4M team, I would like to thank Nutra for sponsoring this lecture. We are excited to welcome Dr. Rafael Gonzalez to share his knowledge on fasting and hormonal balance. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your Zoom control panel, and they will be answered at the end of the presentation. Today's recording will be available on the A4M webinar Wednesday page. Now, let me turn it over to Peyton to start with our lecture. Welcome, Peyton, and welcome, Dr. Gonzalez. Thank you both for being with us. And please begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Dr. Gonzalez, if you want to go ahead and launch your presentation.
Sure.
While he's doing that, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Rafael Gonzalez. He's going to be speaking today on fasting and hormonal balance, clinical applications to support whole body health. Dr. Gonzalez obtained his PhD and BS from UC Irvine. He studied interactions of the immune system following spinal cord injury. He is an expert in degenerative disorders involving spinal cord, has extensive experience in stem cell culture and biology from various sources, and has extensive knowledge in all aspects of cell biology and health, where he teaches worldwide on regenerative medicine and maintaining immune health. Dr. Gonzalez has developed clinical stem cell applications for several diseases and trauma states, leads 4 different IND applications with patented stem cell technology, works on the clinical development of immune-based therapies using natural killer cells, and has led reference laboratory in testing various regenerative medicine products. Dr. Gonzalez has been in the regenerative medicine field for more than 18 years, has several publications, and has taught, spoken, and led many conferences nationwide in the regenerative medicine sector. With that, it is my pleasure to hand it over to Dr. Gonzalez.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for listening. It's a pleasure and honor to be able to teach more than anything else, and actually to learn myself, which I do on a daily basis like we all do, which is always a pleasure. I'd like to take a step back and tell you a little story about my sort of take on hormonal balance and everything, because it's sort of crazy. I was born, I was fat. I mean, even when I was born a big baby, and throughout my childhood, being raised as a Cuban American, I was overweight. I mean, fried foods, rice beans, fried steak, fried bananas. When I hit 17, I was 5'6", and I weighed 205 pounds. Think of that. And we're not talking about muscle. Nowadays, some guys have muscle like that. No, it was a lot of fat. I joined the military, went to the military, and in 4 months, when I finished boot camp at the age of 17, in 4 months when I finished boot camp, I went down to 155, and I was actually 5'9". I had grown 3 inches in that time frame. And I think about it, it's number one, because of the structured diet of 4 months is essentially over there was just 3 square meals. And of course, a ton of exercising, but there was so much structure to it. And one of the biggest things I preach now more than anything else is the first step to everything medically is what's going on with your diet, what's transpiring with your diet. When patients come in and somebody comes in to see you, I get calls from patients from all over the place. I think a lot about the immune system, about what transpires. I think about what you put in your mouth first and foremost. And you have to think of what is going on with the diet. It's the first baby step that's actually needed more than anything else to figure out how can I fix somebody? Because if you're not looking at that first, for instance, somebody has an autoimmune disease, you're looking in the wrong directions. If you're looking to just prescribe, let's look at this, let's concentrate on all the different foods, how the diet is presented, and how everything is presented in that context. So here's a disclaimer that goes, just information is provided for the use of healthcare professionals and intended for educational purposes only. When I always talk about what I describe, what I think about in science, I love to start at the basics, because I want to get you, like I love to interact with individuals, to think from the just general basis of understanding nutrition, the fasting, the endocrine system, understanding what do you need to do to diet, what effects you're having with dieting. And I want to go through that with you right now to understanding, the mechanisms and the effects of fasting on essentially the endocrine system. And the most important aspect of me is scientific backing. Data that shows how you can actually take something from bench, which is something that I've done relatively well, to bedside, because I'm going to show you data that shows you how you can implement a simple system in your practice for individuals and help them support metabolic health. I always start off with this basic. It's a slide that you will see on every single one of my talks, whether it's about longevity, whether it's about the immune thing, because we need to think back and understand we are produced from trillions of these. It is the building block of everything. And we now know that every cell in our body, every single one, strives and lives off communication. Whether the communication is direct contact with each other, whether it's long distance contact, which we're going to describe a little bit in the context of hormones, whether it's talking to itself, a cell secretes something out, and it actually puts it back in to make a change. It's all about making changes. And the changes are made for one particular reason, right? It's to be in homeostasis. We have to be in homeostasis. We have to feel good. And that's the concept behind living longevity and living well. So taking a step back, we look at the endocrine system and we look at the various parts of the endocrine system, all the glands. Are crazy how that few of them, 8 of them, secrete out over 50 different hormones. And of course, there's ubiquitous pathways where some's not acting correctly, the other one, of course, will come for it, and vice versa. This is something that transpires because, once again, the body needs to be right in homeostasis. So think of this. Let's go directly into the gut and the brain axis. For instance, I take in a piece of chocolate, right? As soon as I put that piece of chocolate in my mouth, I love chocolate, and I get that immediate sensation of happiness, of joy, because there's an immediate perception from the sensory the parts that are in the tongue that actually tell the brain now, wow, this is something excitatory. You got to stimuli. And then eventually the signal goes down to the gut where there's either 2 things that happen. Either there's action or something transpired that piece of chocolate wasn't that good. It caused an effect, and actually in particular on the immune system, that can have a negative effect. Another example of such is, I can give you a simple example. 2 days ago, my son, I was invited to his school. They have this thing called donuts once a year. Dad, you got to come. Okay, that's fine. I don't want to have a donut. I know donuts are horrible for me, but I'm going to have a donut. As soon as I bite into this donut, immediate, of course, satisfaction. But an hour later, I can feel what is transpiring. And what was transpiring was not good. And in the context of long aging, first and foremost, bad things that transpire are an increase in pro-inflammatory markers, such as tumor necrosis factor alpha, an increase in interleukin 6. And both of these markers, along with CRP, are well studied and established that they cause a thing called inflammaging, and they actually cause negativity to aging healthy. So it's a big problem for longevity. And essentially what we need to do is look at what? Diet. We need to reset and find a way to reset. So when we think about that, when we think about the metabolic system and we think of hormones, we actually think of how about foods? How about foods that can regulate and balance hormones? And there's many of them out there that as long as you eat right, they can actually do what is needed hormonally. But once again, it's the study of studying it correctly and understanding how the system works, what foods are ideal, and how they can actually interact with the different glands. Let's dive right into fasting. So how does fasting support health? It's simple. It's relatively simple. If you think, first and foremost, people that are thin, the only thing that's known to longevity to make your telomeres not attrition as much is basically caloric restriction, right? And why? It's the same thing as when you look at fasting. It's because the body has to go into a preservation mode. It has to stop that cell division. The cells divide in our body, and believe it or not, even in vitro, when I look at cells in culture, if they divide, if I feed them a lot of glucose, they divide really, really quick. And dividing really, really quick is what I don't want them to do, because I'm prematurely aging them. And we can see this premature aging by them getting larger and actually secreting, signaling much less. So what we basically want to do is slow down, preserve them. The reason being is because, not like a supplement, you take a supplement and a supplement may have one action. Fasting acts with the cell in the body. That's really important to know. When you do this, you actually work directly with dealing with every cell in the body. I'm going to show you some data that actually focuses on the impact of fasting and what it does on cells and the endocrine system. And this is actually not based on any particular product. It's just based on science that's out there. You know, the first ones, which is from Walter Longo's group, which is actually the founder of Nutra, is if you looked at prolonged fasting, and this is in the context of animals, mouse models, you actually did a fasting and it reduced IGF-1, PKA, and it promoted hematopoietic stem cell based regeneration and reverse immune suppression. So many people think, wait a second, a lot of us, a lot of people are interested in growth hormone. Growth hormone makes you feel well temporarily. It increases IGF-1 levels. But in the long term, what IGF-1 does is increases cell division, which is detrimental and prematurely ages you. And you can find these studies everywhere. Moreover, the other one of the issues is that it increases mTOR. And when you increase mTOR, what happens? You have a lot more protein synthesis that's transpiring. That's why many times people look at longevity and aging, where we actually reduce the amount of IGF-1, one, and number two is we reduce the amount of mTOR. They have mTOR inhibitors that are available out there that you can actually take. So in the context of longevity, we want to reduce, first and foremost, cell division. We want to slow that down and we want to preserve it. We want to stop cell death. We don't want it to transpire. Supporting what I just showed you is a fantastic publication that is out of Cell Metabolism, one of the highest tiered peer-reviewed journals that are out there. A periodic diet that mimics fasting promotes multi-system regeneration, enhanced cognitive performance, and health span. The most important thing I see out of this, because I've worked with animals, I've worked with humans, as being a scientist and being what I call a clinical scientist more than anything else, is this diet, this particular fast mimicking diet, is conserved through all species. Studying in the context of this publication in yeast, studying it in the context of a mouse model, and then taking it further and looking at humans and see what actually in the human-based model, which are some of the most important things. We reduce blood glucose levels. You can see this right here. Sorry about that. Panel B, we increase ketone body. We decrease IGF-1. We decrease body weight. We decrease CRP. C-reactive protein is very, very important, and it helps control that inflammatory response. We actually lean body mass. This is really important. The reason being is the vast majority of diets that you actually think about out there is, of course, they're caloric restriction. But when you think of caloric restriction, what transpires? One of the first things that happen is you start burning muscle mass. That's not what happens when you do intermittent fasting or fast mimicking diets the correct way. We also reduce trunk fat. So we're going to shift gears, and Nutra, the company, pipeline of research. And they've actually spent a lot of time, effort, money in preclinical lab research, and development is still continuing. There's actually clinical studies ongoing right now. But right now, there's a commercially available product that's based on that particular technology, fast mimicking, that has shown different but specific clinical outcomes, which we're going to actually go through in this presentation right now so you can understand it in details and you can ask all the questions that you like. Before we go into that, I just have to, of course, give you one more disclaimer, which this presentation is not intended for distribution. Information is provided for use of physicians and other licensed healthcare professionals only. It's intended to be used as a basis for determining whether or not to recommend their products to their patients. So it's you to recommend the products to the patients. This is medical and scientific information. It's not for use by the consumers. It's for you to actually use this particular data. The information is provided for use of healthcare professionals and their education of patients, and it's intended, of course, for educational purposes only. I'm going to introduce you to the product. The product has been in existence for a long time. It's Prolon, and a lot of people are now understanding it a lot better and going on it. It is simple. It's a fasting mimicking diet, what we call FMD. Everything that you see right there is essentially in a box. It's a simplified system, which we'll talk in a lot more details, with 20 years plus of research and development, quite a bit of preclinical work. I only showed you 2 publications. I'm going to show you another interesting one in a little bit. There's several publications that back to scientific. It's completed clinical studies, existing one and pending ones that are now coming on board. They've actually spent $48 million in research grants, studying this particular diet. I don't even call it a diet because essentially it's fasting. And you think of fasting as I'm not eating, I'm just maybe drinking some liquid and that's it. You're actually eating in this diet. It's not like you're not. So it's a periodic 5-day structural meal plan. That big box I just showed you has 5 individual boxes numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of exactly what you're supposed to eat. The ingredients in here are scientifically researched, and they're unique, basically, ratios to make sure that it puts you in a fast, or it mimics a fast. So these are plant-based ingredients that help mimic fasts. They provide the correct nutrients to avoid any form of malnourishment. And at this point of this presentation, over 220,000 user experiences, there's a lot more than that now. So this is a complete safety profile. It's completely safe. And there's many studies around this particular diet. There's only 78 different ingredients in this whole box. So everything that you see there contains about that many. It's protein restricted, which is 9 to 11%, fat based, 44 to 46%, and complex carbs and fiber, because that's interesting. When I first saw this and I said, how am I going to go into ketosis if I'm eating complex carbs and fibers? You'll be blown away. You do. It's a mild caloric restriction where you do anywhere from 700 to 1100 kilocalories per day. So it's interesting because the first time I did this diet, I went through it and you feel fantastic. It's just weird. Come day 5, come day 4, you feel fantastic. The second day I said, wait a second, I want to go back and do my labs and do the test that I need to. I have a simple apparatus called the Keto Mojo. And I looked at the Keto Mojo, and the second day I was actually in ketosis, and I couldn't believe it that I called a colleague of mine and said, I want to do a full blood lab panel, including a urine test. And I was in ketosis on that second day already, which is pretty neat because normally you wait to day 2 or day 3 in the diet. And I was already. And the craziest thing was that day 2 versus prior to that, I had some elevated, LDL, elevated total cholesterol. And since I've been doing this diet, it hasn't been a problem anymore. So it's been available since 2016 as a wide variety of soups. Besides that, these delicious bars, which are my favorite thing that's actually in there, along with the teas. And so are those olives. Those Spanish olives are fantastic. It's fewer than 73 different ingredients. But what transpires, sort of what we just described a little bit ago, but more importantly, a little bit more in depth, is day 1, your fasting state. So it's basically essentially we're starting to put you in to get ready to start burn fat and go into a fat burning mode. Day 2 is when you start going into ketogenesis. Day 1 is about 1100 calories. Day 2, it's a little bit less. And then when you hit day 3, it's probably the most important aspect is you go into autophagy. Autophagy is essentially what are you trying to do? The body is now releasing out different cell toxins, different things from the cells, and your own cells are essentially picking them up and cleaning them up and doing what it needs to do. So this is what transpires during autophagy, and that's at day 3. Day 4, we now start the cellular rejuvenation portion of it, and it's what transpires when you're at day 4 is cleaning and rejuvenation continues. Day 5 is when everybody says straight across the board. I have not heard anybody that doesn't say that. I'm used to this already. I feel fantastic, both in an emotional state, including myself, and I feel great. And this one you can actually notice a difference, actually, sort of a transformation in the body. Day 6 and beyond is when you are ready to nourish the body and you are now ready to break that fast. And of course, you want to break that fast the correct way. So essentially what I look at this diet many times too, is I look at it sort of, for those that understand, we can normally we can't be in a diet mode all the time. We are adaptogens. We have to be able to adapt. So you restrict and then you eat. You restrict and you eat. Hormesis, right? And it's essentially you make changes in your body. But what does Prolon do for you? If you do this 5 days a month, it actually supports metabolic health. It supports cardiovascular health as part of a healthy lifestyle. It'll help you lose 5 to 8 pounds and visceral fat reduction, which is important. In my case, first time I did it, 11 pounds. Second time I did it, 10 pounds. But the 5 to 8 pounds is actually what you maintain in studies that back this data. Helps reduce waist circumference. Everybody wants a smaller waist, of course. Helps you preserve lean muscle mass. I don't want to lose muscle mass, especially as we age. We definitely won't. So with that in mind, it helps support healthy aging and cellular rejuvenation, autophagy, what we actually talked about earlier. This particular study, which is a fantastic study, I want to go into just a little bit of where fast mimicking and markers of risk factors for aging, diabetes, and cancer and cardiovascular disease, where they took a large of humans and they actually, to me, honestly, the most important things, some of the most important things you want to look at: body weight. Body weight was reduced significantly. Body mass index reduced significantly. Trunk fat reduced significantly. Lean body mass significantly actually increased in this case. And that we want to look at when you go into a diet. IGF-1, just like we stated, we want to get that reduced when you're in a aging or anti-aging or longevity mode. It reduces it, and it actually helps control and reduce blood pressure. Moreover, when we look at it in the context of maintaining, so keeping, we just described on it, it actually helps continually to reduce IGF-1. Fasting glucose levels are maintained, so they're basically leveled off. Systolic blood pressure, diastolic blood pressure, your total cholesterol is also. And the nice thing about all this is the safety portion. There's no dangerous drops in biomarkers. You know, you're not going extreme dropping. You're doing this a little bit at a time, and you're it. So long as you're being smart about it, you're doing the diet way, which we'll go into in a little bit, and you're doing it. The nice thing is, once I said earlier, the individual to maintain after 3 cycles of this waist circumference. 60% of the individuals were able to maintain that, the reduction in it. 55% of the people were able to maintain the reduction in blood pressure. The body weight, 64% of them were able to maintain those, and 71% were able to maintain a better, of course. These are the things that you want to look at long term, not just essentially going on a diet and then all of a sudden you cycle right back to the way you were before with the problems. The other interesting thing, and there's really something unusual for those of you that have tried this diet, is when you're done, it's sort of like a neural switch, a neurological switch. That neurological switch forces you to second, I need to make changes and I need to adopt a healthier lifestyle. 89% of the people said this. You're a lot more mindful when you decide to eat, or you're going to eat after, of what you're going to eat. Because you spent 5 days and you felt so good, and that switches on to make you feel good. Because if you eat something incorrectly, you're going to old ways. They feel like a lot of more people have more control over their health. They establish healthier eating habits, 70% of them, which is pretty neat. So the nice thing about it, you do this 5 days, and this behavior makes a change in you, which is what you want. You want people to be able to have that behavioral modification in what they do. Now, some of the tips for a better experience, a lot of people always ask to all of us that are at El Nutra is, well, you know, can I have cheese? 100%, as long as they're unsweetened and free. And there's actually some fantastic that are in the actual box there that you can have on a daily basis. I love the hibiscus tea. When I add it to my water, I in there and I'm just drinking that all day. It's fantastic. It's one of my favorite things, actually, with a small squeeze of lemon in it. It's fantastic. You can have a couple pieces of sugar-free gum if you want. Adding, like I said, a squeeze of lemon, you can actually do that. And some of the things, if they're not salt, if they don't have enough salt for you, go ahead. As long as you don't have blood pressure issues, as long as it's not contraindicative, based on what your doctor says, you can add specific herbs. We don't want anything unprocessed. We're giving you something healthy to go through for 5 days, something that's proven, something that has research and science behind it. We don't want you to do that. You can have all types of sparkling water, which for me are fantastic. I love sparkling water. I have my bottle right here. And you don't have to give up that cup of coffee, which for me is important and for many is important. You're okay with doing coffee a day. Of course, no, I don't know how many of you out there actually have taken and drinking coffee and adding creamer to it and studying, essentially taking a blood prick, looking at blood glucose levels, looking at what happens when you add cream to it, when you don't add cream to it. Certain creams may affect your blood glucose level. Some may put you out of ketosis. It's something that we avoid because it's not part of the diet. We want you to stick with the diet and go with what we know works well. You can do 2 cups of black or green tea, traditionally steeped, 6 cups of decaf. I don't know who would drink 6 cups of decaf because I think it's probably equivalent to 2 or 3 cups of caffeinated coffee. But anyway, you drink up to 6, based on the amount of caffeine you can take in every day. So there are some things that you can do. Who is Prolon for? What is this lifestyle for? My personal opinion is for anybody that can tolerate it, that wants to get healthy, and they want to live a long-lasting life. But at the same time, so for instance, if you want to lose weight, 100%, you want to do healthy aging, you want that metabolic support, 100%. But at the same time, there, of course, are no's to everything. If you have allergies to nuts, oats, sesame, or specific components that are in there, and you're welcome to ask those questions to us once you sign on. Of course, if you're pregnant, just like any other product, you have to avoid it. Anybody under 17, we haven't done any studies with individuals under 17 at this point, so we wouldn't be able to help you on that part. And of course, if you're underweight or malnourished, it's something that you have to look at. Why do you want to lose more weight? Why do what are you trying to do here? And then anything, if you have an active infection, of course, that needs to be taken care of before you decide to go on any form of diet at all. So it's something that, my personal opinion, I turn to first and foremost. I have many, many colleagues that do the same thing. If you can actually do this, you need to give this a try. And the greatest thing about it is, like I said, step 1 in your practice, somebody walks in and you do blood work on them and they have an autoimmune disease. Let's take a little bit of a step back and let's understand what's going on with the diet. The good thing about this is if you give them the opportunity to do this, you now have a patient that's came in and you have a patient that you can actually say, let's do some blood works and we can start off with step 1 and let's add these other steps in also, whatever you prefer to do. But step 1 is actually, let's get the diet together. Let's see what we can do to help you metabolically. Number 1, it gives you a completely personalized approach. It gives the patient a completely personalized approach. And then you can schedule, of course, the follow-up visits to do the same blood work. And the important part of that follow-up visit is showing that before and after in the blood work. I think that's really, really important. And now the patients are actually coming back, interacting with you, and they're happy because it's a step you can do. Those that say these type of things are too expensive, it costs, this type of diet is better, in my personal opinion, than any supplement that's out there or any supplement. Buying 2 supplements a month is about what this diet can actually cost you. And it's going to make a difference overall in, like what we said, in all the cells in your body. You have all the resources with us, with the Nutra team. We're here to completely back you up, to support you, including they even have, which is pretty neat, health coaches that are there to motivate your patients as they go along. So your patient goes on a diet, they have access to a specific line, they can talk to coach at any time they want to if they're having trouble with it. And the concept is relatively simple with the diet. Is number 1 is try to get them, we want to do an intervention, of course. And the intervention in this case is going to be, is essentially going to be looking at it in metabolic, where you can actually deal with, understanding, putting them on this and try to deal with diabetes, metabolic syndrome, obesity, hypertension, hyperlipidemia. Putting them on 3 consecutive, because the evidence we have is on 3 consecutive, where right now they're assessing doing 4 months of it, or just doing a standard healthy protocol for aging, putting them on 2 consecutive months. Right now, the 3rd month is being assessed right now in specific studies. And many times in instances, patient will achieve an improvement, but they haven't met that goal. And if you want to look at that, then you consider repeating this. You do this 2 more months in either one of the aging protocols or the metabolic protocols. And at a point that you become content with where you at, for instance, in my case, then you do this. I do this every quarter. I'll do it every quarter. I'll take it up every quarter. And it's fantastic. You know, it works great. If anything, anytime I think I veer or I do something incorrect, this is my go-to. And it's my easy go-to. And I know it's going to make a change in my life. So this is why I go to it. For those that are not quite ready to blown into doing this, we have this fantastic thing that just happened is a reset. They've now scientifically looked at just doing 1-day fast nutrition. Okay. What does that do? What is that going to do? What is that going to help you with? Well, it's essentially just a way to. How many people out there, and I know a ton of people out there, they talk to their friends and, oh yeah, I diet 6 days a week. Sunday's my cheat day. Well, guess what? Your Sunday, your cheat day is the day that you messed up the 6 other days. It's really not worth it. Let's take a step back. Let's do a reset with this and then go back into your standard program of your intermittent fasting, if you're doing intermittent fasting or any other type of diet. So do that reset. And it also enables your patients to try it out one time. You just try one day. It's about 1,100 calories. You try it out one day. I think it's really, really easy and it's fantastic. I'm telling you, that bar in the morning and that chocolate bar at night are, wow. They're really, really good. You start the day off fantastic, you end the day off fantastic. The 2 things that you really want, because it gives you that mentality of, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to stick to this. And I feel good. This gives you the ability to basically now, once they've done it one day, if they're not comfortable doing 5 days at one shot, you can now say, okay, you saw how good you felt. You really need to do this for 5 days. And you have an educational platform that we will provide for you for that 5-day prolonged FMD. So you can actually do this on a regular basis, ideally once a month, or at some point every quarter, as long as it's benefiting the patient, which is what we're looking at. So this helps you take a break because it's essentially, here you go. You cheated on that Sunday take this on Monday. Okay, let's get you reset. Let's get you back down so you can recover and go on your norm again. For instance, in this case, maybe intermittent fasting. And intermittent fasting is fantastic, but if you're intermittent fasting for 16 hours and then your 8 hours consists of pizza, fried chicken, and bagels, trust me, you're not going anywhere. You're not going to do anything with that. You need to eat correctly. This is specifically proven to help you, especially when you overindulged. When you took that donut, for instance, that I took on Monday, it's the first thing that I'll turn to is maybe do a 1-day reset or do something like this. It helps you. It'll help enrich your lifestyle and it'll give you healthy aging, healthy eating, and of course, more than anything else, I said, it turns on some kind of a neural switch. It did it for me. It's done it for many too, where it puts you in when you pick something up and you're eating, you all of a sudden say, do I really want to do this? I don't. I've sacrificed and done this. Keep to it and I feel so much. Let me keep to it and stick. Here's some of the references that you're welcome to actually get. And I'm actually here to help more than anything else, to help anybody that's out there in any cases. This is actually our contacts right here. You can contact Antonio Perez. You can contact our medical scientific team. Or if you'd like to contact myself, my email is rgonzalez, Gonzalez, @lnutra.com. We're here to help. I appreciate your effort, your attention, everything, and open it up to questions, concerns. Remember, the question that you don't ask is the question that your colleague, of course, Dove has, and it never got answered. So let's open it up to questions.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez, for such an engaging talk. We have a few questions in the Q&A that I'll bring to your attention. The first, how do you deal with food cravings and deprivation and getting stinking hungry?
So in this particular diet, when we think of that, for instance, everybody has pattern eating. I call it is what I call it. Everybody does more eating, whether it's at night or whether it's more eating in the morning. In this particular diet, I take a little bit of a different approach where I try to consume in a less period of time. For instance, I'm not a morning eater at all. So I may delay taking everything. So I don't have that strong, like you said, stinking hunger, stinking diet. And if I do, then what I do more than anything else is turn to liquids. Unfortunately, you have to turn to liquids. Many times when you have that hunger, you have, for instance, like ghrelin coming up. And one thing you can do is essentially, it's really not many cases hunger. It's actually thirst. And many times it's actually not even hydrated correctly. Drink fluids, drink as much water as you can. If you want to drink, waters that'll help you, a little bit of the carbonation to help full, knock yourself out, drink teas. It's a way to circumvent that hunger feeling, because if you drink a lot, eventually you're going to get, yes, you have to go to the bathroom, but so hunger goes away. And then you go, it's a diet more than anything else for me. Specifically, I do it on a Monday to Friday because you're busy, and keeping busy keeps your mind off of what's transpiring in the gut. It's the way to go with this. Works.
Excellent. We have another question. Can one use sugar-free creamers in their coffee?
No, because sugar-free creamers are loaded with, sugar-free crap. It's loaded with a lot of stuff that's really tough. I don't want to veer from that. If you absolutely need to add some sweetener, add a natural sweetener to it, stevia or whatever. You're not supposed to. But if it's something that you can't live without, try something like that. I would not use artificial sweeteners on any of this, because then you're veering from the concept. It's not only just for you to lose weight, it's for you to get healthier, for you to actually make a change, get that blood pressure under control, lower that blood pressure, get your under control, get all of it under control and feel better. Make a sacrifice. It's really only 5 days. And if you decide, just do the 1 day, try the 1 day and see how you feel, and then jump to the 5 day.
Excellent. How does this cyclical Prolon diet compare with daily 16 to 18 hour intermittent fasting for long-term benefits?
How does that, what do you mean the daily?
How does Prolon compare to intermittent fasting regimens?
Well, there hasn't been any direct studies that show comparisons. For instance, this particular, if you do it 3 times in a row on a monthly basis, is actually similar, believe it or not, if you look at a heart healthy diet where you're essentially only taking in about 1,000 calories a day. This diet is actually better than that type of diet. So you're caloric restricted for 30 days versus doing this for 5 days and doing the Prolon diet. And once again, the amount of research, the amount of time, it's completely different. I mean, I've been intermittent fasting for I don't know how many years. And once again, as I said, if you intermittent fast, you do 16, 18 hours, and all of a sudden you break your fast by eating junk or eating a bagel or eating whatever, you really didn't do much with that intermittent fast. You also need to eat healthy. So this gives you an avenue to actually eat healthy and make sure you're eating healthy.
Excellent. We have another. Can this be set up as a revenue stream for the practice?
That you would want to discuss with Antonia, and I think there is a method to do that, of course. 100%. Yes, it can. Yes, there you go. She can actually talk to you. Antonia can actually talk to you about this, and they'll give you some pricing. I don't know if Peyton, if you'll talk to him about pricing, or Antonia will talk to him about pricing and how it's set up as a revenue stream. Absolutely. You want to go ahead?
I'll go ahead and just mention it while my mic's on. So for active A4M members and attendees for this webinar, the current wholesale price per box is $125 with a suggested retail of $189. I'll let Antonia answer any other questions you may have for that. Her email will be provided.
Perfect. I want to answer, there's a question right here from Luz Feldman. Luz, I have never lost more than 2 pounds with each Prolon. I've done 4 times, but then I regain it. My BMI is 30.5, and am I doing something wrong? There's a possibility that yes. Number one is I would look at what's going on with your thyroid. These are, of course, tests are a lot more. Maybe there's something going on with the thyroid. I don't know if you've done that yet. Number two, are you modifying anything within that diet? Because that's relatively unusual. I've pretty much heard straight across the board people losing 5 to 8 pounds easily, especially if your BMI is 30.5. You should be able to get that off. Are you drinking coffee with creamers in the morning? Are you substituting sugar? Is your salt intake too high? Are you adding too much salt to some of the soups? Looking at these little different things can make a difference. And once again, I would go back and check your thyroid. I would look at that because maybe there's something that's not enabling for this to work for you. The lab work, how many times doing Prolong before? I'm sorry, I lost that question. Same from Luz again. The lab work, how many times doing Prolong before doing the lab work again? You know, number one is what I've done is I've done a baseline, then I've done the diet, and then just to see in the middle of the diet, because I want to know, I've done some standard blood work and I can see differences. And then I actually do it towards the end, meaning 2 days after I'm done and I'm off of it, and I see the same thing. I recommend that you do it before and after, because if you see a change before and after, from the before and the baseline to the after, then there's something that's going on when you're off of it, meaning within those 3-week time frame, something is going on if you're going back to the way you were before 100%. You need to make a lifestyle change with whatever you're consuming. Something may not be eating right. You'll be blown away. I mean, if you did some kind of food allergy testing, you might be eating something that's actually affecting you that you don't think that, even something healthy. For instance, I can't eat blueberries. Blueberries affect me really bad. I got to find that out by taking food allergy tests, getting off of it, then going back on it and noticing that it affects me. I don't feel well. I feel lagged. So it just depends on the individual. Another great question. How about the fast bars? Can I assume that if I take a fast bar, I am not breaking my fast? Yes. So that fast bar is scientifically proven to keep you in a fasting state. Let's go into question for physicians. Do we purchase and sell to patients or refer to the Prolon website? If we refer, do we get a % income? Peyton,
right.
or
again, we would, any kind of sales-based or referral based questions, Antonia will be in contact with you to answer that. But there is a slight margin there for professionals. Okay.
Question. I've now done 4 years of 3 months in a row of FMD. This coming June will be my 5th cycle. I started to feel miserable on it pretty much from the first day until day 6, when I can eat real non-packaged food. I lose 4 pounds each time, not till day 8. Why? Let's look at your diet before you actually go into this. There may be something that's affecting this that has not been processed. 1, 2, let's look at the actual ingredients and your actual once again, your allergies to possibility of anything that's within the diet, to make sure that's not why this is happening. I can see how you don't lose, because for instance, in my case, the weight loss is around day 8, day 9, too. I can tell you day 3, day 4 for me are relatively difficult. Day 5, all of a sudden, it's just some kind of switch that I start feeling good. And day 6, I go on a reasonable diet, something that's reasonable and good. I would try to look at allergies before, what have you consumed before, that's slowing the possibility of the autophagy process, possibly slowing, putting you in ketosis, and looking at that in the context of, you can actually measure it yourself. Keto Mojo is a device. I think it costs like $50, something like that. I'm not promoting it. I'm not part of them or anything like that. It costs like $50. You can actually test your blood glucose levels, and you can test your ketosis levels once you start it. Looking at what's going in, is it delaying it too much because of something prior to, or some allergen, something that your system's not used to taking in when you go on it. I would look at that. What is the biological purpose of the liquid added to the water? It's actually to maintain more of a fullness, more than anything else, to help you maintain fullness, to help you maintain healthy levels of blood glucose, a little bit of all of that. How about a glass?
I'll add to that a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's the L-drink is glycerol.
Oh.
Glycerol is an analog for glycogen when you're in a fasting state. So instead of depriving your muscles of those glycogen stores, we can give you an analog and allow your body to focus on fat breakdown and ketone production instead of breakdown of the glycogen stores.
Luz, how about a bit of grass-fed butter in the coffee? That's a fantastic question, because people have asked also about MCT oil. We don't recommend it. If you decide to do it, it's on you. It's probably the diet's not going to be as effective. Once again, I would take you back to looking at, does it affect now if you're not on the diet? Add that now to one of your coffees and see what transpires. Look at your blood glucose levels and look at your ketosis levels and see what happens if you've done an intermittent fast without the diet, just irrespective of the diet. I don't recommend doing it, and we don't recommend it doing it at all. What about stevia or monk fruit? I do add stevia to my black coffee in the morning when I'm on it. I haven't had any issues. It's really not recommended. You're supposed to do straight black coffee, but black coffee on its own, you can give it a try. Give it a try and see if it helps you. If it helps you get through the diet, then 100% see how you do with it. Are there any special considerations one should attend to if the client is on a regimen of hormone replacement? If you have a client that's on hormone replacement, I've been on hormone replacement when I've been on it. I know many people that have been on it hormone replacement. I haven't seen anything in particular that you really need to be conscious of. Of course, you want to make sure and keep contact with them. The good thing is that, like I said, they have a health coach. They have access to a health coach, and they'll have the ability to ask questions, or you to ask questions to the particular health coach. And you always have access to the team if there's anything in particular you want to know, specific questions about somebody being on hormone replacement and going onto the diet. But as far as I know, no. Gluten-free, what was this? Predominantly plant-based, keeping 70 pounds off 40 plus year. Longevity and anti-Alzheimer's. Asking why feel miserable, not why only lose. Oh, asking why they feel miserable, not only why you lose 44 pounds on. Yeah, you're not going to lose that much weight on 112 pounds, and you're doing this for longevity. I get it now. Well, so first and foremost, if you go into ketosis, many people describe what you're describing, not feeling well. It's something that a lot of people are not used to unless you're used to doing it. You don't feel well. Sometimes there's ways to, unfortunately, you can magnesium, salt. There's some ways that you can help it a little bit, but unfortunately, it's something that you have to go with, and you will feel miserable. Only some people feel miserable in ketosis. I feel miserable, like I said, one day. When my ketone levels go actually a little bit too high, is when I feel miserable. I might feel a little fatigued. I don't know if you're working out while you're doing this. If you're working out while you're doing this, it makes it even a lot harder. You're going to feel a lot worse. So you just have to, you have to try to consider and find what helps you. There might be some teas that might help you. There might be drinking more of the liquid that might help you. There might be changing the routine of how you're eating the food, maybe eat it in throughout a longer time frame or through a less time frame. that's maybe something that you can try. You can give it a try on. Would this diet cause hypoglucemia in a diabetes mellitus patients? That has to be referred to, I would say, one of our medical team individuals. I don't know if
we have not had
we haven't
any
seen that. Yeah.
reports of that. If you want to, you can reach out to us directly at med.ed@lnutra.com, and we can discuss that in more detail.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I have a couple people that are diabetic that have done this. I have not seen that. They can answer a lot more detail of that for you. What about type 2 diabetics? Yes, they can do the diet. And hopefully soon there'll be some interesting data on all that for you guys.
We do have a couple of other ones in the chat I just want to bring up. Can you discuss a good diet for an overweight person to transition to for a couple of days after the Prolon diet?
Yes, I would stick to soups. Watch your salt consumption, that it's not too high. I would stick to shakes, fruit smoothies. Try to keep it where, even nuts, just keep it natural. Don't go straight into eating processed foods, bagels, none of that. Just keep it simple, keep it healthy, avoid processed foods. It's not that difficult. Drink smoothies, as long as the smoothies are not, loaded with processed sugars. Certain fruits are actually really, really good for you. Nuts are fantastic because you now have the substance of the fat you want to maintain. Doing something like that. Soups are great. Soups are really good. And vegetables, of course, more than anything else. The diet is a vegetarian diet. And you want to try to, when you wean off of it, for instance, the first thing that I actually do when I wean off of it, I might eat, my first thing that I might eat is something like a light fruit, like maybe some strawberries or something like that. Or I might make myself a blended smoothie with actually adding some MCT oil actually in it to give it some flavor. And then I go to salads. My go-to when I get off is basically salads. As far as regular food, salads and proteins. And the proteins I like to consume, since I did have some good amount of fat in the diet, is maybe a steak or some kind of a shredded meat or something like that. Something with salad, with vegetables, with substance that maintains you full.
Excellent. We have another one. Would you suggest staying off of resistance exercise while doing Prolon?
Yes.
How about cardio?
Yes. Cardio, walking is perfectly fine. For me personally, I do, even when I'm on it, I do a 2-mile hike. Just depends on you. I would catch a feel for instance, day 3, when the restriction becomes a little bit harder. It's a little bit less calories. You just have to watch it. You might feel more tired. I would tell you, like I said, is keep busy. Number 1 is keep busy. Number 2 is it's an opportunity to you to say, I'm going to do something for 5 days. And one of the most important aspects of this is when I'm on this diet, believe it or not, I'm laser focused. I'm going to sleep a little bit more. I'm putting myself to bed a little bit earlier. I'm giving my body that chance because I'm making a sacrifice. You're making a sacrifice. So since you're making a sacrifice, sleep a little bit more. Go ahead and take that walk. Do not go out and work weight lift, because if you're going to go and do resistance training, it now requires a lot more nutrition in the muscles. You're going to be really, really hungry. It's just going to make it a lot harder. And then it's not recommended at all to do it anyway.
Last question here is, do we stop all supplements during Prolon?
Yes, there's supplements within there, so you do.
We have a new one in the Q&A. What would be the approach for younger overweight teenagers? Pretty interesting. For example, Muslims will start Ramadan month fasting for ages 11 to 16 whenever they undergo puberty, as that has not been reported by the majority to be harmful and largely considered beneficial. Apart from obesity, IF practice has also been okay for those under the age of 17. Sure you're aware of limiting addictive behaviors, reducing cardiac risk.
Yes, I am. And unfortunately, we have not done, Nutra has not done studies on this age group yet. So we wouldn't be able to answer that question. Yes, I mean, I'm aware of exactly all you're saying, including helping during, hormonal balance during puberty, all of it, helping reduce risk of calcium, all of it. Unfortunately, we have not done studies yet in that age group, so I can't say anything as far as, that recommendation.
Okay.
I think that's it.
I think that's all.
Everybody, thank you for your time. I'm here to help once again. Keep healthy. You have one thing that you have control over, and that's diet. There's nothing more important than diet. You have full control over that. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, everybody. Any unanswered questions or those that are coming in a little late will be answered after the webinar. We will reach out to everyone directly. If you do have any questions, our information is on the screen. We look forward to speaking with you all and working with you further. Thank you.
Thank you.